Joel Courchaine is an experienced general manager that has worked with used and franchise stores across Western Canada and now with Subaru and Audi in Elk Grove, California. He lives and breathes a people-first mentality, and this conversation will clearly demonstrate that. If you need a fresh perspective on leading teams and growing rock stars in your organization, look no further. This is such an amazing conversation about leadership. Thanks for listening in, and hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks for joining the Dealership Legends podcast.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. For people who don't know who you are, let's start out with a little story from how you got into the automotive space and where you are now.
Well, I was 23 years old and I'm 43 now, so dating myself a little bit, but started way back. I was in sales actually at Future Shop in Canada in Regina, Saskatchewan, and I needed a little bit more, so I happened to be shopping for a car at a dealership and they were hiring. So that's where I made the entry into automotive, and then worked there for a bit, and then got promoted to GM 8 years later and moved west to Swift Current, Saskatchewan, and ran a RV store, Nissan store, Dodge store. And then I helped out with a Dodge store in Medicine Hat, Alberta, and then moved to Kamloops to run a store there. I helped that one out, and now here we are in Sacramento, California. So a little counterclockwise journey in the automotive world.
Yeah, fascinating. So congrats on the 20 years. I didn't know that actually. So that's a big, it's a big milestone. Not trying to date you, but
it's all
that's
good.
A lot of experience under your belt, and I'm really excited to dive in for many reasons to this conversation. So, sorry, you were 8 years in when you became a GM?
Yeah, it was about 7 or 8 years in, sold cars, then a sales manager, and then he asked me if I'd move the family, and we said, yeah, it just felt right.
Amazing, and you've done that a couple times, so yeah, unreal.
Yeah, we're on a journey.
Over the last 20 years, you've obviously seen a lot of change in the industry and inside the stores that you're running or have worked under. How do you define and build culture inside of these stores?
Good question. Really, I was in a place where I didn't know what to do when I first started as a GM, and so what I gripped onto was that when I was failing was that it was okay to fail until I finally found a book and it taught me how to back away from being in the business. The E-Myth specifically is the book, and start working on the business. And when I was able to back away from selling cars and being with the customer all the time and actually identify the customer as the people doing the work, then that's when everything started to work out, was when I was actually focused on the people doing the work. And so from then on, I just continued down that path of just the customer are the people under the roof doing the work.
Fascinating. I know we've talked about that book a lot, and it's impacted so many people in different industries. So it's interesting because when I originally was around dealerships, I always thought that, all these systems are the same from store to store, and they have this like hierarchy, and we're going to talk about that because I think that's really an important conversation. Mm-hmm. But I always thought, they have everything figured out. The GM never works in the business. Why would they do that? But obviously that's not always the case.
Yeah, it's crazy. When you have it figured out, it becomes so easy. It's just good people doing good things for other good people, and just getting the right people in the right seats, identifying that, finding out if they're passionate about what they do. Because if that's the case, then it's easier. It's an easier customer for you because you're kind of playing the same game, and the great game of business, money's the scorekeeper. So if you start teaching them the whole thing and how it comes back to you, then it's just so much fun. You're just paired up with other like-minded people.
Yeah, I think I've asked you before, is like, what's your favorite part of the business, and did you like cars when you got into it? And I think your answer was no, it's the people.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was thinking about that this morning, that, I don't have to be in the automotive world to enjoy this. I think that at some point you just realize that it's a people business, and most businesses are just people businesses. You happen to have a product that you're trying to promote that could potentially solve a problem or create value for someone, but really it's the people that if they believe in it and they believe in what you do, then it's just so easy at that point.
So your teams are really polished, and I mean, you're always looking at new ways to develop them. How do you develop a world-class team?
That's a big one to unpack, but
there's probably a lot there.
Yeah, that's okay. It's like I said, it's easy when you surround yourself with good people. And I talked to you before, actually, we had a good conversation about it on a hike or something where, the old school methodology is there's this hierarchy and you have, the GM or the owner at the top, and then everyone trickles down in this triangle. But when, after reading books and realizing that the true client is the client is the most important piece, and then who's serving the client, for us, in our sake, it's the service advisors, it's the mechanics, the technicians, the salespeople. So if you focus on what their needs are and what resources they need, you just create teams that could provide those resources. So I have sales managers and service managers and parts managers that provide value to the people on the front lines taking grenades every day. So you flip the script in a sense where you're really just a resource provider at the bottom of the chain. You just happen to have access to those resources, and you push it upwards. And that's the secret sauce, is to really flip the script from what it used to be, because I do believe that unfortunately back a long time ago, it actually worked okay for people to, rule by the iron fist. But certainly today it is quite the opposite. So that's why it works.
Yeah. What habits did you have to lose in order for you, or a shift in mindset? Like, how did you go about it? Because it's one thing to read something in a book, but it's like another thing to see what you've done wrong, or quote wrong, differently, and what you're going to have to take out and what you're going to have to add in.
Right. I love this topic. So where the rubber meets the road here is, what you have to lose is you have to lose control. You have to give up control. I read a sentence in a book. I can't remember what book it was, but you start to gain control when you release it to the people that are on the front lines and allow them to speak up and come up with ideas and change of process. You just listen to them. Again, it's the same thing I told you, is if you put them first, they're the ones that can identify, they're on the front of the boat. So they could see the iceberg coming. They could see the waves coming first. You're kind of at the back, again, providing resources. So you just have to stop leading and start serving. And you start doing that, and you start listening, and you let them, run the ship, so to speak, provide value that way. They feel empowered. They then become owners within the business, and that's what makes them want to come back to work, is because they're feeling valued, because their insight is being heard and their suggestions are being implemented. And then as a leader, you get to back up a little bit and kind of watch it happen. You just have to be okay with letting them come up with ideas that may not work, and even try them and allow them to try them. Because I've used this example before. If you were to hover around your kid when you're trying to ride a bike, he may not ever learn how to do it himself. So you have to let them fall. You have to let them try new things, and then they get back up and they say to themselves, okay, well then, to balance the bike properly, I need to do it this way or else it'll hurt. So you have to kind of have a budget to allow them to come up with ideas and be part of it, because again, then it becomes their DNA and it's not just your stamp on the dealership or the business that you're running.
Oh, this is so good. I think you answered like 4 of the questions that I was going to bring in here. Like how to make people feel valued inside of an organization. And like you even said, giving them the ability to take on responsibility. They have ownership over their own actions, growth opportunities. Is there anything else that comes to mind there? Like it could be something on the micro. It doesn't have to be a huge idea.
Yeah, it's funny because again, it's back to just being a good person. And you don't ever have to raise your voice. You don't ever have to. The discipline part of it is there's a lot less of it. It's coaching, it's nurturing, it's asking questions. I mean, I could go on forever, but the formula is pretty simple. I use the word compassion a lot in my meetings because when I searched up the definition, there's words like empathy and sympathy, but compassion is not just identifying a problem or a conflict, but it's actually wanting to do something about it and then doing something about it. So, I mean, that's the business we're in in retail is you're trying to solve problems, but when you do it for the people under the roof that where you're providing services, when you do it for those customers, that's where it feels good again. Because as a business owner or a general manager, I mean, we were all with clients at one point, and that's shaking someone's hand is the most fulfilling thing when you were able to provide a value that they saw that it was fit for them. And so you don't ever want to lose that. So if you could do that for your sales managers or anyone in a leadership role that you're serving, then you feel like you're getting that you're fueling what you've been looking for is you're providing value again to customers. So I use the words compassion a lot and curiosity because too often, we could be compassionate humans, but if we don't listen to what the actual problem is, and that's being curious, we have to ask a lot of questions. And so if we could ask a lot of questions, we could be better about how we serve them and how to be compassionate, because our version of being compassionate might not be the one that they're looking for. So that's where the being curious collaborators is just as important as being a loving person or a compassionate person.
This is great. I'm going to pump your tires a little bit here. Your head might explode. I don't know. The first time we met at one of the dealerships after I moved here to BC, I was looking to really ramp things up just in the auto space. And when we first met, I remember distinctly how valued I felt because of this all these things that you're saying right now: curiosity, compassion. And by the end of it, I just came in, I didn't even know what I was looking for necessarily, maybe just some clarity on the path forward. But I remember at the end, you were just staring at me. You didn't say anything. And I was like, what's going on? And you're like, well, you're going to sell me anything? What do you got to sell me? And you giving that opportunity to me sparked something so massive inside of me that still I feel today. Mm-hmm. So I felt super valued by you just being you. It felt so genuine, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Too often we transact with people, and that's a slippery slope. I mean, if we're transacting, there's no feeling, there's no human element in it. But if you could serve someone, and even to the point when we interview people, it's not what we're looking for. If I can ask someone across the room that's looking for a job, hey, look, you're looking for a job and we might be able to provide that, but what are you looking for, and how could we as an organization serve that? It's back to providing value, because we can hire someone and they're typically the best representation of themselves in the moment. So I mean, but we can hire them based on these false pretenses, but if you could get to finding out what they're passionate about, then you as an organization could decide, can I provide that? Because if you can't, then it's mutual and they should go elsewhere. We do that too when we're coaching people that aren't performing. They might just not be passionate about what they're doing. So if you can ask them if they're truly passionate about what they're doing, because if they're not, then it's an easier conversation. It's not that they're underperforming, it's just that they don't love what they do. So you want to back to just putting people in the right seats and identifying that. And the only way to identify that is to ask questions. And so again, back to curiosity, you can solve a lot of problems by just being curious with people. You might say, hey, you're underperforming in this area. All the while, if you said first, shame on me as a manager, they might not have known that was the expectation, or they might not have the roadmap. So to be curious and say, hey, why aren't you hitting this mark? Again, it's back to asking a question. Why aren't you hitting this mark? They might say, I didn't know. And there's a great book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor that taught me a lot about how people get fired and they didn't know what they should have done different. And so we have to ask questions and then coach them coach them for what we're looking for and what they are looking for as well.
That book's fantastic. You recommended that to me after you read it. And the ruinous empathy part, like that's, oh my goodness, I was falling victim to that in so many ways. So great book.
We're all guilty. We're all guilty of it until we, and even reading books is just us being curious. And there's lots of answers out there. And we could trial by fire, and we could do it, by trying the wrong things, and that's fine too. But it'd be nice to skip a few of those failures and go right to the progress with a lot of the books that are out there.
Definitely. Speaking of books, Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time, there's a really amazing piece that he says in the book is your vision has to be so big for the company, the future, that fits everybody else's vision inside the company, inside of it. So if you have a team member who wants to be a GM, how can you make those things possible for that individual to really build the company in a way that it's all moving in one direction?
Yeah, that's a great book. I struggle with the vision piece that you and I have talked about, getting something up on the wall or on the board. And I'm guilty, and I'm going to be vulnerable right now, where I'm guilty of always trying to make it perfect. I want the perfect slogan or the perfect vision statement up on the wall. And really, that's one of my weaknesses is just allowing something to go up there so that people could critique it or change it, because that's allowed too. I mean, our customers evolve, they change, and so we evolve our processes. So I think I have to just try to get something up there so that we could cling on to something, and maybe better yet is have them come up with it and then have it breathe out from there.
Yeah, the progress, not perfection, another great quote on that point. But I think we're all guilty of that. I certainly am as well in so many different ways. But I also think it's because we care, right? Like we just care so much about something that we're working towards and how that thing is going to impact others, especially when there's something like a mission statement on your wall that's a driving force for everybody to look at each day. I mean, that's a pretty big decision to make.
Yeah, it is. But if we, I use the words vulnerability a lot and humility a lot, and we, vulnerability to me is getting out there and being okay with getting hurt. And then humility to me is getting hurt and being okay with that too, and celebrating that, and then pivoting from there. So if you talk to the team and you promote failure and you're just there to watch it and guide it, they just feel then they don't feel like they're trapped in this space where they just have to follow the process. But if you promote them being able to make mistakes, good things come from that, new ideas come from that, and we have to do it as well. And when we fall, we have to just wear it and talk about it and say, hey guys, I messed up. It's okay though, but we have to be okay with the team members doing the same.
There's no huge punishment, it's a mistake, it happened, let's learn from it, move forward.
Yeah. There's no need to get upset. There's growth if you're doing well, and there's growth if you're doing bad. It's just so long as you learn from it.
Right. How do you sell the vision inside of the store? Because when you come into a new dealership, your mission and vision is going to be slightly different than the other operator, the other group, the store that they came from. So there's so much change, and it affects every single person under your roof.
When people, when you use the word, how do you sell the vision? So this is a great topic. So I think if we have to sell something, then it's, to me, it's more transactional. Whereas if we just talk about, again, being just a good person, doing good things for good people, then there's no selling it. It's just asking questions. Hey, what do you guys see we should be doing? What are you guys struggling with? And how can I help? There's the vision is just, oh wow, someone's listening to us. And you start creating that cadence, that rhythm of, I'm here for you, I got you, I support you. What do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? Because they'll guide you to where the customers want us to be, because they don't want any friction. Again, to me, it's not selling. It's just being a good person, listening, asking questions, and then implementing. Again, providing those resources. I think ultimately, and I said this to the team the other day, and I think struck a nerve, is that you want them to trust you, but trust, you can't ask them to trust you when you first meet them. Trust is consistency over time. So you just have to continuously do the right thing and then actually do it and actually implement it and actually provide value, create a process that works. They start seeing that over and over again, then trust comes. So again, back to your question, you don't have to sell anything. You just have to listen first and then implement second.
Do you give trust initially as a leader? Is this something that you have changed over time, maybe you've struggled with, or is that earned in your books?
No, that's a great question. I love answering this one because I see a lot of my team members struggle with that. If they were harmed, or if a customer was upset, they get upset, and so then they don't trust the customer. But the truth is that we have to allow that perception, their perception is their reality. So for me, it's innocent until proven guilty, never the other way around. You have to allow people to do things, and you have to trust that they're doing it in a way that they see is fit for them. So typically no one's malicious or trying to do things on purpose to hurt anyone. So, that's where you would lose someone's trust typically. But typically I'll say this, a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, it's a miscommunication. It's just a misfire. And that if you can sit in the weeds with them, sit in the mud with them, you'll find out that it wasn't a trust issue. It was they didn't understand it, or they perceived it differently than you did. So at that point, it's easy, right? You reconnect. And I use the words compassion, and then I use the words curious collaboration, and then after that you connect. But not until you sit in the weeds with them and find out where their head was at. So that's why for me, trust, it's again, nobody's out to try and do the wrong thing. And if they are, then you have to shake hands with them, identify that early. If they're malicious in their intent, then they probably shouldn't be there. But you can identify that if there's a pattern. But again, 9 times out of 10, whether it's a customer or a salesperson, it's that we just didn't connect properly. They were looking for more information, and that's up to us to provide. It's shame on us.
Oh, damn, this is getting good. So I have the growth wheel from your organization here at the Ram dealership. I first seen it up on the wall. Maybe I'll share a picture with it in this conversation online, but the outside ring is learn, improve, attempt, reflect. The next layer down is acknowledge, listen, investigate, collaborate, formulate a plan, take action, finish, win or fail. And then the feedback session, what can we improve? And and curiosity, curious is a word here, confident, courageous, humble, and in the center, compassion and communication. It's like, this is you. If Joel was a wheel, he'd look like this, man.
Well, it's better to be a wheel. I would say, so that's evolved over time, and I have a new version of that.
Okay.
And I started sharing that with the new team. To me, it makes a little bit more sense, but it's the same thing. And now we have a triangle, but it's the same thing, and it works. So long as you're using the same words, same verbiage, you're speaking the same language, it all does the same job. Again, it's back to just good people doing good things, but growth, if growth is the mindset and you want everyone to grow, again, it's back to just you're curiously compassionate about where they want to be. And if you find out that they want to be a GM one day, or they want to be a GSM one day, or whatever they want to be, they want to be a service manager, we need to know that. And this wheel is, growth is the ultimate. Growth is really what we're here to do. This is The Great Game of Business, another good book. And they just talk about we're all playing a game. And so long as we're playing by the rules, if we can have fun and grow people along the way, we've done our job. And it's important for us to know where people want to go. And then as resource providers, managers, leaders, we get to help remove hurdles. But the best part is that if they're wanting to grow, there's no other way but for them to seek your guidance and for you to listen to how they perceive it and you find a place where it's like, here's what you have to do to get there. And then all of a sudden results start coming because they want to play the game and they want to win at the game. And so then it just becomes easy for the whole team to do well because they know what the trajectory looks like, and they know that leadership wants them to get to that trajectory or that goal.
I can imagine that you love people who want to win inside your organization.
Yeah, I do love people that want to win, but I love people, I said this the other day, I want people to be willing, because winning can sometimes mean, you got to trample over someone to get to the finish line. Whereas to me, willingness is more important. Talent, I don't hire people for talent because that stuff, who's to say someone's talented? It might not fit the mold of your dealership or your culture. So you have to be careful to hire for talent. Whereas if people are willing to listen and to follow kind of that compassionate mindset that we have, then the rest we could coach. To me, we could coach people to be talented. But the willingness part, the compassionate humans, they really either have it or they don't when they walk into the room. And I can work with the rest with coaching people the process and how to make, how to build something or how to work the process. But they're either in the game and willing to play the game, or they're just in it for themselves. So the word winning to me could be a bit slippery.
That makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, I think you can define that in any way. And it sounds like in your world, winning is being an amazing human, a radically compassionate individual who wants to do good.
That's right. Yeah. And being candid, you said radically, you're back to the book, Radical Candor. We're able to be candid with people. If we're able to be candid with people about their performance and stuff, that's where these willing mindset people are willing to listen. Whereas typically if someone's just there to win, they might not hear you out. They might not take the time to listen. And that's more important to me and my team. So again, back to just having people that are prepared to try new things and try to pivot.
Is that how you protect your culture, gatekeeping your team, or what are ways that you do that?
Well, to protect the culture, first and foremost, and a lot of really good, really smart entrepreneurs have said the same thing in different ways, but you have to cut the cancer out immediately as soon as it happens. And I can't remember who said this, but it'll forever stick with me. But cancer and gossip, to me, are one and the same. Where gossip is defined as people talking to other people that can't do something about the problem. And so the moment you see those things, it slows the whole team down. So you have to make sure that if people are concerned about something or frustrated about something, that they go to somebody that could do something about it. Because the moment it goes lateral, you start to slow the team down and it starts to spread cancer, and that's really dangerous. So, we're in a great position now at the Subaru store where we've now surrounded ourselves with really good people wanting to do really good things, and they know, and they don't talk about the stuff that they're unhappy with other team members that can't do anything about it. I shouldn't say that. If they do, people know, hey, bring that up to the front. Bring that up to someone who could do something about it, because we now have people that are willing to listen to us and do something about it. So how do I protect the culture? It's really identifying the people that are trying to go against it.
Right.
Because the rest just grows automatically.
That's awesome, because every time I interact with your team at Subaru, for instance, everybody's upbeat, everybody's happy, everybody's joking around, everybody feels like family. And I hate using that because every dealership says, "Oh, we're a big family," I feel like. But it sounds a little cliche, but no, it's true. And I think you have a team that wants to get better and wants to spot that cancer and that those things that they need to fix inside the business, because they want to protect their future and really love where they work.
Yeah, there's another point that I bring up all the time with managers is, we could say that our door's always open, but that never works. You'll notice that, as a manager, as a leader, you could say that and no one ever walks in, or typically they won't until they get to that point of true comfort. But the best way to create that is to actually go out to them in their space and check on them in their comfort zone. You do that a few times, and then your door opens, physically, whatever. Either way, we can't just assume people are going to walk in and start, explaining what they're frustrated with. It's better for us to go to them and check on them, because again, it just from the past, I noticed that it just, we'll get frustrated, someone will quit or say something they didn't mean all the while, all because we didn't check in on them. And we get frustrated. I hear managers say all the time, well, I told you my door's always open, why didn't you come and tell me? So it just goes to show that they're not willing to walk in. You have to go to them.
That's powerful. Is there any other ways that you ensure that the ship is being steered in the right direction? I mean, you're steering it, but making sure everybody's rowing in the right direction.
It goes back to just the same thing we've talked about. So there's no secret sauce there. Asking a lot of questions. Hey guys, how was the day? What worked today? What didn't work today? What do you guys? What feels frictional, and what do you want to make smoother? You say, how do I guide the ship? I don't guide the ship. I ask questions. Maybe. So if we are the rudders, if the leadership is really the rudders telling what direction we're going to head, everyone else is rowing and rowing and rowing, and really that's the horsepower that we need. And so it's flipping the script, asking them what they want to see more of, what they want to see less of, and we might just steer them down this path or this path with the little tiny rudder that we have, but that's the resources. We just, I don't guide it, they guide it.
Seems like a lot of dealerships are stuck in their ways when it comes to marketing or operations and leading from the top of the triangle, like the pyramid, like we spoke about. How has been an early adopter, I'll call you. You're very quick to try new things and pivot strategies if you don't see anything working. How has that benefited you failing forward or faster?
How has trying new things, how has that improved us? Is that the question?
Sorry, let me reframe this question. How has failing faster helped your organization?
Well, we talk about this a lot. That's a great question. The customer's expectations change frequently, as do the people that work with you and alongside you. And so it's back to asking questions. What would you like to see? What's your goal today, Mr. Customer? We have great tech. We paid up with some we've paired up that help us connect frequently. We're always asking after the transaction, how did we do? How would you rate us? How would you score us? What could we do better? What's funny about all of this is it's the same thing we do with our team members, is what we do with our clients. It's just back to asking a ton of questions. And if you could pair yourself with tech that allows you to do that, or we're finding more and more ways to automate those things to get more feedback faster, because again, the client's expectation is changing. Looking now at Subaru has great resources for us that will allow us to now pick up and drop off for people's service needs. And if we don't start playing in that space, we're going to be left behind. So it's one thing to try it, but it's another to try it where it's cost effective and it makes sense. So, but there's lots of tech out there that you have to explore in order to be where the customer wants you to be. So we're excited to have a young crew, young and eager, again, back to having people that are curious and willing to try new things. That helps that part of the equation. So you need the right people to be able to try that.
Switching to the market a little bit in the whole auto industry, I know you guys had an incredible month at Subaru, so congratulations.
Thank you.
What are you seeing right now in the space? What are your predictions kind of for the next 12 months? How do you see things change?
Good question. And so for me, I rarely look too far out. I feel like we're pretty in touch with the client and the landscape that we're in. And so I don't typically watch too much. Of course, there's politics get involved, who's going to be the next president or prime minister, and there's ebbs and flows in regards to market conditions. But at the end of the year, it always seems to be where there's a bit of a gain. You'll have things like COVID that really messes with that equation. But at the end of it all, if you're in touch with with the client, then you're really kind of ahead of the market, because the client really knows what's going on, and if you know how they feel, then you could be alongside them in the journey and progress throughout it. So rarely do I look at the market and start to make big decisions based on that, because you just, it would be to throw up a Hail Mary in case something were to happen, to me, would be bad business.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I think that's the very first time I've ever heard that answer. I love that a lot. I think any business owner, doesn't matter if you're auto space or not, you get so caught up in the day-to-day and news and kind of painting a picture of the future of what it's going to look like and planning towards that, which, I mean, it's important to some degree, but I guess at the end of the day, you're always going to have a customer that wants a car, and that customer might change over time, but you're there to serve them and solve their problems.
Yeah. It's funny, in our business, if the market is down, new cars might be down, but used cars goes up and service goes up. So there's always the teeter-totter for us. It doesn't really affect us that way. There could be less transactions at the end of the day, the month, the year, but marginal. But one always kind of makes up for the other. So we're fortunate in that aspect.
I think that's a really cool thing about the dealership space, is how resilient you are. And I mean, in the last 20 years, you've obviously experienced a ton. You've learned a ton. Closing this out, you've given me a lot of wise wisdom, and the listeners today. What's something that you would want to pass on to other entrepreneurs in the car biz?
I talked about this with the team the other day. Typically people just want to make more money, and they want to get to the finish line real quick. The lottery ticket syndrome, none of it really exists. You have to look at the feedback that you're getting. Those are the opportunities where we can serve, and it's a marathon. You can win the sprint, with the iron fist. You could do a lot of things with the iron fist, but very quickly and momentarily. But when you're connecting with people on a daily basis, an hourly basis, good things just start happening. When you start listening, we cliche 2 ears, 1 mouth. You start really listening to people. You get to collaborate with them. You get connected with them. And again, this isn't just how to sell cars. This isn't just how to service clients. Like, this is everything from relationships to marriage advice to, just really just sit down and talk and listen and ask a lot of questions, really get intimate with who you're across from, find out what their goals are, what they're looking to achieve. And then value comes from that when you collaborate together. You'll get customers that come in and say they want this and that and the other thing, but when you slow it down and you say, well, wait, just tell me more about this, the answer ends up being something totally different than even they were wanting. So again, they open their wallet only once they've, in what you're looking to provide. And sometimes even when it wasn't the right thing, but if at the end of the transaction, you call and say, how did that go? And even if it went wrong, they just want someone who's willing to correct it. It would be like having a bad meal at a restaurant. You could have a bad meal and never go back there again. But if the chef comes out, or if the head server comes out and they're truly willing to make it right, the end result is irrelevant. You're going back there because they're willing to make decisions that impress you. And so that's the beauty of this, is you don't have to get it right. Just grow with it and go with it, and be vulnerable enough to put yourself in a position where you might get stomped on and yelled at, but in the end you learn from it. You end up, I tell the team all the time, you go into a dark space, it's okay, you end up finding the flashlight, and now it's not a dark space anymore. And now you know how to maneuver that tunnel the next time you go into it, and that's growth. And so again, we're not looking to win the game, we're looking to grow people, and you win by default. It just happens. And so that's when the money comes, that's when the trust comes, that's when all the good things start happening, that's when the promotion comes, is when you're just looking to provide value that exceeds the expectation. It's so simple.
I love this. Joel, you are one of the guys who don't just talk the talk, you truly walk the walk. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm not just kissing your ass. I'm very serious. you communicate with everybody like this, including your family. I've seen that firsthand, and it's super awesome. So I'm going into a new hire, an interview today, and I'm going to take some of this knowledge and apply that and see if we can fit their vision for the business.
That's great.
Thank you so much, Joel.
That's great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Incredible. I hope you found some value in this conversation, just like I did. And we're excited to continue to bring interviews and conversations with dealership legends, maybe just like yourself. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. I'm your host, Braden Gingrich from Dealer Surge.